In earlier videos, we saw the importance and power of the opposition, but also that gaining the opposition is not always enough. In many positions, white can have the opposition and still make no progress. In this video, we look at positions where white gains the opposition in front of the pawn, and we'll see why this changes the character of the endgame. We'll focus in particular on what happens as the pawn reaches the 5th and 6th ranks, and why opposition that was previously effective for black can suddenly prove meaningless. In this position, white plays king e4. White takes the opposition in front of the pawn. This is decisive. With correct play, white will be able to promote the pawn and win the game. What can black do here? He wants to stop the white king from advancing, but he must step aside. He plays king d6. Here, the power and purpose of the opposition is revealed. White can now advance his king. White plays king f5. What can black do? He has a few moves, but with correct play by white, none of them will stop the pawn from promoting. Let's suppose black plays king e7. Now white has a decision. Should he move his king or his pawn? This is where beginners sometimes make a mistake. White wants to promote the pawn, and so pushing the pawn up the board makes sense and even seems like the obvious move. But what if white plays e4? Black responds king f7, and now white's mistake is obvious. Black has taken the opposition and blocks the white king. Now the white king must move to the side only to be blocked again and again. As we have seen previously, white finally advances the pawn e5, and yes, white has gained the opposition beside his pawn on the 5th rank, but this is not sufficient, and this game will end in a draw. Let's back up. What should white play? White should take the opposition and play king e5. Black plays king d7, and white again outflanks with king f6. The king arriving on the 6th rank is a major milestone. Assuming basic pawn safety, and regardless of what black does, white is now able to advance his pawn to the 5th rank. King e8, e4, king f8, e5, and king e8. With the pawn on the 5th rank and the king on the 6th, now white has a decision to make. Should he move his king or pawn? If white plays the pawn e6, black is able to take the opposition with king f8, and as we have seen, this is a draw. Instead, white should take the opposition with king e6. Now the black king must step aside, for example, king d8. White plays king f7, and the pawn will promote. Let's back up. With white's king on the 6th rank, we said that white can safely advance his pawn to the 5th rank regardless of what black does. How is this possible? From this position, suppose we have this sequence of moves. Black plays king d8. Previously, black played king e8. And now, e4, king e8, e5, and king f8. Here, black has taken the opposition. Isn't black now able to block the advance of the white king and prevent the pawn's promotion? With the pawn on the 3rd and 4th ranks, this is true, but here is a case where black's gaining the opposition doesn't matter. When the king is on the 6th rank, in front of his pawn on the 5th rank, having the opposition for either side, or not having the opposition, is meaningless. The stronger side, white in this case, will in all events be able to promote the pawn. The reason is simple. In such positions with white to move, he can play e6 and gain the opposition beside his pawn on the 6th rank. As we have seen previously, this pawn will promote. In this video, we've seen how taking the opposition in front of the pawn changes the position entirely. Earlier in the series, we saw many cases where white could gain the opposition beside his pawn and still make no progress. That was especially true when the pawn was still on the 3rd, 4th, and even the 5th rank. Here, the situation is different. Once white is able to take the opposition in front of the pawn and advance the king to the 6th rank, the character of the position changes. At that point, white can safely advance the pawn to the 5th rank, and black can no longer prevent promotion. We've also seen that in these positions black may still appear to have the opposition, but it no longer serves its usual defensive purpose. With the white king on the 6th rank and the pawn on the 5th, opposition for either side becomes irrelevant. The stronger side will promote the pawn with correct play. In the next video, we'll step back and organize these ideas more systematically and look at how to recognize winning and drawn king and pawn versus king positions quickly without having to calculate long move sequences. Hope to see you in the next video.